Hello and welcome to HorsePlayers Happy Hour, week number 2. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker. Once again, all eyes on Belmont Park this weekend for Belmont Stakes Day and the 3 win and you're in races we've got cooking. We're going to get to those in a minute. We've got a contest starting. Unlike other weeks this year, the contest hasn't started yet. You can still play. So if you're hearing the sound of my voice and you haven't gotten involved, you still got 8 minutes to handicap the 7 races that make up this contest. It costs $20. All the money goes to charity. The proceeds, I should say, go to charity, which means even if you're just rolling over to horseplayers.com and selecting HorsePlayer Happy Hour and playing all the 4s, you're doing a good thing. And then hopefully you'll hang out with us here over the course of the next hour, and we're going to narrate this contest and interact with you and preview win and you're in races. That's basically the size of it, the long and the short of it. And to do it with me, we have the usual co-host of this program. You know him from such programs as NBC Sports coverage of thoroughbred racing and his own eponymous podcast. He also, along with me, founded this show about 7.5 years ago in another format, the In the Money Players podcast. He's TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's up?
Pete, good turnout. We still have time, and we're at 209 entries.
Nice.
So, hopefully we can get close to 215 by the time this third race at Belmont goes. And we have a graded stake to kick off the contest. How about that? A couple of funny quirks about today's contest, not just that we're all Belmont, we're starting later. You start with the graded stake. The 7th race at Belmont has been scratched down to a match race on turf. Now, from a contest standpoint, maybe not ideal, but from a fan standpoint, I think that's awesome. I think it's going to be very cool to watch that.
That's interesting. It is. And it's a real match. Like it makes sense because you've got a speed horse and a finisher. We'll get to that. I'll tell you what, for a once in a blue moon thing, especially with the charitable element and the $20 price point, if you did that on the big contest, you could hear the moans from here to Peoria. But it's kind of fun and different and interesting, and I actually don't have that big a problem with it. It's just a curiosity as much as anything else. For anybody who's on the fence, thinking about joining, thinking about taking another entry, let's explain to them how it works. And I'll let you do some of this yapping, Matt. But first and foremost, this is a $20 contest that feeds into another contest on Saturday where you can win your entry to the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. But I'll let you, while I do the important business of opening this frosty beverage, I'll let you explain how it works.
Yeah, not only can you qualify for the upcoming BC qualifier on Saturday, if you finish inside the top 10 here today, you'll earn points toward the year-long tour, let's call it the HorsePlayer Happy Hour Tour. At the end of the regular season, whoever has the most points accrued will win a BC seat. You will also qualify for the postseason. There'll be a certain number of folks that do so. You qualify for the postseason. We trim it down half at a time. You end up with the final table. Whoever wins the final table also wins a $10,000 BC seat. And I kind of glanced over the fact that, yes, the top 10 get points for this contest, but if you finish in the exacta, the top 2, you automatically qualify for the postseason. So there's a lot to play for. Again, it's a $20 buy-in, low sort of barrier of entry if you're new to contests, or if you're just looking for something to do. Maybe you've already handicapped Belmont and you say, well, why not? I'll take a shot here, get involved. Something to play around with. And again, as you sort of alluded to already, the most important piece, you're helping the thoroughbreds and where they're going to go after their time on the racetrack is done. They give us so much day in and day out from an entertainment standpoint, from a wagering standpoint. We got to make sure that when they're done on the track, they have a safe place to go when it's all said and done. And TAA and TRF do a great job with that. And, again, the Breeders' Cup and HorsePlayers, they've helped out and sort of afforded us this opportunity to have a little bit of fun and also donate to a good cause in the process.
Very well said. And I'll just underline the idea of thanking the Breeders' Cup for working with us in a way where we're able to add those 2 extra Breeders' Cup betting challenge seats to this prize pool at no cost to players. So this is a big positive expectation. I was impressed with our group of final table players last year, but when I noticed there were some experienced horse players, but 9 of the 10, I would say, maybe 8 of the 10, pretty darn new to contests. And then you had, the resident wise guy, Matt Vagvolgi, in there as well. But it made me think, like, a lot of serious horse players, they're not understanding that just because the buy-in is low doesn't mean that the prize isn't very significant. So help us. And the other thing is, yeah, I get it. In theory, you're hurting your chance of winning these prizes by spreading the word about this. But I think it's important for two reasons. One, Matt hit it right on the head. You're helping horses after their days are done. The TAA, they do that important work of accrediting the different organizations who provide aftercare to make sure everything is as it should be. And then the TRF, our founding partners here on the network, when horses can't be retrained for another endeavor, they're finding them their forever homes and doing so in some really clever ways, like their Second Chances program, which at some point on here we'll yap about. So you've got that charitable element about it, but it's more than that. It's also when we say to industry partners like Breeders' Cup, hey, look what happens. Look how well we can do when we do things that are fan friendly. You know how it works in this business, in any business. If the market responds to something, the people in charge of the business are going to want to do more of that thing. So let's do stuff that's helpful for horse players and for horses all at the same time. 2 minutes to post here at Belmont Park. What a pleasant surprise to have stayed on the turf. I would not have given you a nickel for that chance when I was woken up by the rains at approximately 6 a.m. here in Brooklyn. But we're on the turf. We've got 3-year-old fillies going a mile and an eighth in the Grade 2 Wonder Again Stakes. Did you have a quick thought on this one, Matt, as they're going to post here?
Yeah, I respect consumer spending. Again, we've talked about Chad Brown's merits, and all of his horses are running at this meeting, especially so with the turf runners. Look, she beat Pizza Bianca last time out, who came back to win at Pimlico a few weeks ago, who will be on her way to Royal Ascot, or who's already there, maybe, who knows. But I ended up going with Skims on the outside. I think she's going to get the jump on consumer spending. She's run relatively well over ground with some cut in it. And I don't know. I just feel like this is an upwardly mobile filly that could be, I think her best days are still ahead of her. She's still lightly raced, goes out for Shug. Pratt's got the mount 3-1, especially from a contest standpoint. If you do think it's a 2-horse race, I would much rather, and I haven't seen the will pays, so maybe they're going to come in a little closer as we get closer to them loading into the gate. But 3-1 versus 2-5, I would gamble even purely on the fact that even if you think consumer spending is the better horse, I think just purely from a value standpoint, you're better off with a horse like Skims in this instance than you are consumer spending.
And I'll give a very tepid nomination to Vergara from a contest point of view as a way to get started. I just think that that's 6-1, now 7-1 on the tote is a pretty darn good price. You got an aggressive front end rider in Luis Saez up, a chance to prove clear speed in the spot, and third off the layoff. Is she as likely a winner as the other two? No, I don't think she is. But in terms of game theory, contest theory, I think she might be paying in a little bit of an outsized way. Not huge value, but maybe one, and I'm just guessing here. It's not like I priced up the race 100%, but maybe I would have made 5-1. You're getting 7-1. I'm okay with those kind of minor, what you might call minor overlays in a contest environment when you're trying to eke out a little bit of value. And if you want to say, okay, well, even if the 7 wins doesn't really hurt me to have my opponents get $9 here or whatever it's going to end up being as they start to go into the gate. We'll see. What's your read on Vergara? She's just going to get out kicked by those top two?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'd like to think she's going to get the jump on both of the top two. And who knows? Crazier things have happened on yielding turf courses. We'll find out. We will talk about the Final Answers pod that I listened to last night, because an all-time line about the horse that I am picking in the race. So we'll dive into that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll definitely do.
The one thing I would say though, just looking at the tote here, would you agree that if you blacked out the names and the connections and everything involved, there's really not a lot separating Skims and consumer spending? I would think this is Chad Brown money, which it's not meant as a knock to Shug McGahee, but it feels like everybody and their brother. When all else fails, just go to Chad, because I don't think there's that much separating the two horses.
No, I think that there is probably a little bit too much between the two. I think what it is, in addition to the connections, is some condition and flow stuff. Second off the layoff for consumer spending and closing into those blue fractions. It was a nice late pace performance from consumer spending as they're off here and seem to be taking their time about things. Vergara, as expected, going to the lead, and Skims not giving too much rope to work with. Looks like Pratt is intent on not letting Saez get away with anything on the front end. We'll see if that ends up being very good news for consumer spending. But yeah, you got to be happy with where Skims is. They're not mucking about here in terms of they're not treating Vergara like a no-hoper.
No, and I think they're kind of, this is in a way how we sort of laid out the race, where Vergara is going to be forward. I think Skims is going to get the jump on consumer spending. Not that we figured she would be coming from 100 out of it. The fractions I would take, obviously they're not even showing up on the screen, but I would take all of them with a grain of salt today. I don't know how much rain fell, but I know it's been a washout here today. And like you said, apparently it was quite wet overnight down in the tri-state area. So.
Yeah, did they take off the non-stakes, did we say, or did they leave this whole thing on?
The only two that are on are this race and the match race in race 7.
Gotcha. Interesting stuff. Entering the turn here, and you are absolutely breathing down my neck. Consumer spending poised, but being asked, notably. I think it's time for you to go and for Pratt to try to lay down the hammer and skimp away here while you have a chance maybe to get the big horse off the bridle. But that ain't happening because the big horse is finishing right down the center. And from here, it just looks like a question of how far, and we'll see what happens.
Tell you what, the 2 is running.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But I think this horse has a head of steam. I think it'll come 3-2 to the wire. Let's see, though. The 7 hanging on very gamely for that second spot, but not going to be 3-2-7 in the end. And everybody playing in the contest is still very much alive, very much all to play for. We encourage folks to chime in. We hear from our man AJ Benton heading to Belmont this weekend. Excellent. He loves these contests. Going to be playing on Thursdays. Let's try to meet up out there and have the cold beverage of your choice. And thanks us for doing stuff for players and horses. That's as much as we have a vibe or a brand or a gimmick, we hope that's what it is, to try to be able to represent players and do some things that are helpful and take things from a little bit different of a perspective along the way. And we're glad to see that there's a lot of other shows out there now and other organizations, including Breeders' Cup, trying to join in on some of those initiatives. We have a first timer, Rob Capalbo, who I met at our Live at the Brentwood shows in Saratoga, another big Massachusetts sports fan. You'll be happy to know, Matt Bernier. He's wishing good luck.
2-1 finals lead, baby. Counting down.
Great stuff. That's an interesting topic to potentially get into at some point. So we've got so much to do. Here's one thing I want to do. So this is kind of silly. We do these from time to time around here. It's called the production meeting in the middle of the show. I think what we should do, we want to cover the 3 win and you're in races at Belmont Park and the big one at Belmont Park for this show. And we want to cover them for the show, the regular late week Players podcast that you're often a guest on, rather than do the same segment twice. I say we just do it here. And this will become, I'll record a separate intro, but we'll do a segment starting now where we do the 3 win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup. You game for that situation?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Now I just need to remember which 3 they are. Do you have it off the top of your head, or I can pull it up real quick?
I know. I want to say the Ogden Phipps. I could be wrong, and please correct me if I am. The Jaipur and the Met.
That's it exactly. What order you want to do them in?
Why don't we just go post position order? Jeez. Post
race card order.
Let's try that. Yeah. So
you don't get much sleep these days. You're allowed to make that mistake. That's absolutely okay. So it's going to be races 7, 8, and 9 from Belmont. Here, I'll bring it in like it's the beginning of a segment. Bear with me, folks. Next up in the show, so happy to be joined by Matt Bernier. We are going to be talking about the 3 win and you're in races that are happening this weekend. You've heard me talk about them in an ad elsewhere in the show. Now you're going to hear us getting into the form. The first of the 3 is race number 7 at Belmont on Saturday. It's the Ogden Phipps, a win and you're in race for the Longines Distaff. And Matt, I'm very curious to get your idea of the winner.
Well, I mean, Latruska is just rock solid. She shows up and runs her race time and time again. She's often been afforded comfortable leads. As was the case, I thought, in the Apple Blossom, all things considered. She went out there, was able to gamely hang on. Clairiere couldn't run her down because the pace situation was a bit disadvantageous. I guess to me, the X factor in the race and the way that I'm going to go, it's a bit out on a limb, but how far out on a limb can you be in a 5-horse field? Search results. I feel like Chad's horse can at least be close enough. I don't know that the Ortiz boys are going to go, banging heads early on. I could see it rad aboard search results, just kind of flanking Latruska. Keep in mind, he knows Latruska as well as anyone. He's ridden her a million times. And search results, if you just look at the buyer and say, oh, well, 96, she's not fast enough, that's fair. Depending on other figs that you may consult, one in particular, she's extremely fast. And I don't know if it's going to be enough to win, but she should get first run. And I guess you could look at it the other way and say she's going to be the one that unfortunately has to do the dirty work. I'm going to approach it more in line that I think the other girls are going to have too much to do because the pace could be on the more moderate side. I'll give search results a shout.
My idea in here was to play it mostly for an exacta. And the most likely exacta, I think, is Latruska over Clairiere. I could see a world in which Malafat is ridden more aggressively than we're used to seeing, though she has nearly led at every call before under weird short field circumstances before. I don't think we're going to see her on the lead at all, but I don't think we're going to see her as far back as she might be. And then there's also that possibility of search results attacking early if they do decide that they need to do the dirty work on search results. As you intimated, there was a world in which that might happen. So I think those two are going to hang on one second, Perrin. Those two are going to get exhausted, and I think Clairiere is going to come and finish. Perrin, come say hi to the crowd. This is the weekly visit from Perrin.
I need my guitar thing. My guitar thing. My Taekwondo backpack.
I don't know where it is, but you do need to bring your sparring gear today, Master Kim said. So Loli can help you out. Say goodbye to everybody. All right. And I will not be picking you up today. Mommy's going to pick you up because I got to go to the track. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Let's move on, Matt. I think I finished where I was going with that. Let me just make the point more clearly because I was a little distracted. I just think Clairiere with her finish might have a tactical advantage late because those two are going to be closer to Latruska, who I think is a little bit of a freight train with a pace, best numbers pace advantage. And I do think it's interesting and notable, to bring it back to the Breeders' Cup for a second, that obviously disappointed by the results of the Breeders' Cup last year, which I think was mostly a result of the pace in that race and how crazy it was. But, remembering how she was training leading up to that race, I think she was a little over the top. Her season started back in January last year. She had a lot of races. And look, I'm all for that. And I certainly didn't hold the Breeders' Cup against her when voting for an Eclipse Award. But this seems like a campaign designed to win the Breeders' Cup. And I think we're very likely to have a fresher Latruska at the end of the season. We'll see how it plays out when it comes to Saturday and the Ogden Phipps. The next win and you're in race we're going to talk about is race number 8, the grade 1 Jaipur. This one being a win and you're in race for the turf sprint. And Matt, I've been talking too much. I'm going to throw it right back to you. Who's going to win this thing?
So hard. It's such a hard race. I don't like turf sprints because I'm not particularly good at them. But B, when you get a race like this where aside from Arrest Me Red, or a Casa Creed, I suppose, fits in there as well. Aside from those two, you could really make a case for any of them. I ended up going back to my old friend Gear Jockey. I thought his run at Churchill was solid. He checked at a pretty critical moment. He was part of that sort of pace skirmish early on, had to steady out of there, rallied, and just flattened out at the end of the run. The Shakertown 2-back at Keeneland, no, he wasn't great, but no one was going to beat Golden Pal with the way that he ran. He never has struck me as a Gulfstream kind of turf horse. I think he's more of a 5.5, may even be a hair short. He's a 6 to 7 type, in my opinion. He's not quite a miler or a mile and a 16 type, although he's won at those distances before. I think he is a 1-turn 6 or 7 type, maybe even a 1-turn mile, maybe the Woodbine Mile down the road. But I think Gear Jockey is probably a little bit dirtied up based on some of these last running lines. I don't love 6 to 1 in a field like this. I would want something, 8 or 10. I don't know if he'll go off at that price.
You might get that.
But I went with Gear Jockey. And I think one other thing to at least throw out there, Jose Lezcano's reunited. And Lezcano had been aboard for that run of 4 races where this horse ran really, really well. And I say, 4, I'm including the Breeders' Cup, but the turf sprint at Kentucky Downs, the Troy at Saratoga, and then the N2X at Saratoga. They're arguably the best races he's ever run. And Lezcano was aboard for all of them. So they get reunited. We'll find out. Gear Jockey is where I'm going to go.
I like Gear Jockey as well. And I just thought that trip last time was horrendous. And the horse showed an awful lot of grit. Very, very hard to check like that one up in the Vanguard at 5.5 and then still come on and make a menacing move and still even stayed on okay at the end after getting tired. This is a good horse. A joke I made to JK on the Final Answer show, and folks want much more on the Belmont card, definitely check out the Final Answer show on our YouTube channel or our podcast feed with me and JK and the great comedian Stephen Christ. But the I said Gear Jockey collects trips like our kids collect Pokemon cards, and at some point you wonder, is that a character flaw? Is there something about this horse's physicality, the opposite of a push button horse, say, the kind of horse that gets into trouble? And that is kind of why the 6-1 isn't overly appealing to me. But in this tough field, I think that you could easily get more than that. The other one that I will mention in this spot is the 13 Gregorian Chant. Finished ahead of Gear Jockey last time. And the angle with him, and we'll get a line on this on Friday from how Caravel makes out, and I guess it's the Intercontinental. The inside on the turf those days at Churchill, it was that typical thing you see sometimes after the rain where the inside did not seem like it was good. If that becomes a confirmed thing that the horses that were down there are running a few lengths better, I mean, if Gregorian Chant runs a few lengths better, Gregorian Chant's going to win the race. So it's not the easiest post, but I think Gregorian Chant is an interesting one to keep in mind. I like the chances of Rosario to maybe work a good trip. And then in terms of your exotics and everything, I can't fault Arrest Me Red, who looks like the best speed, or Casa Creed, who probably looks like the best closer. So I'll probably mess around with all four of those in various combinations in the Jaipur. Any other thought on the Jaipur before we move it along?
No, because at that point I would just be spraying, because I think you've got.
You could talk about 7 of them, couldn't
you? Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could probably even go deeper than that. In a field of 13, it would not surprise me at all if I'm making it up. The only one that I guess I just really have a hard time seeing is Gray's Creek, but beyond that, you can at least make interesting cases, albeit some of them more likely than others, for I think the vast majority of the field.
Yeah, it's really true. It's a question of where you want to take a shot. And it is interesting in a sequence that has some races that are really nailed down to try. If you can, rather than fully spread, if you can just find the long shot or long shots you like, you have a chance to make the seemingly simple rest of the sequence work for you instead of against you.
The other thing, Pete, if you think about it from a multi-race standpoint, if for whatever reason, let's say you believe it is Chalk City outside of that race, rather than just spread, find, and again, this is where, we've talked about Steve Christ, and we'll talk about him again, the idea of using the ABC method. I think that's a race where you get really aggressive, even with a price, because I think everybody's going to be looking at it saying, oh, I got to go wide there. I got to cast a wide net. Well, if you like, I'm making it up, a 15-1 shot in that spot, play them for $10 as part of a multi-race wager, as opposed to, just buying the race and saying all move on kind of thing.
Yeah, you're going to lose equity doing that because it's so master of the obvious in this pick 6 sequence to go single spread. Every ticket is going to be that. That's going to be a very, very hard way to make money, unless, of course, you got a non-obvious single in one or two of those other races. One of the horses that will be the biggest single in the pick 6 comes up in race number 9, where we've got more Breeders' Cup win, and you're in action for the Hillendale Metropolitan Handicap, better known as the Met Mile. And this, and you know how I love saying this, win and you're in action for the big-ass fans, Dirt Mile, Matt. And this is the return to the races of Flightline, who was so hyped heading into the last start, his first in graded company in the Grade 1 Malibu. And then he delivered on the hype in that race, running faster at every call and putting on just a massive performance. Of course, it's not like it's all sunshine and tamales here. There's some issues potentially with Flightline. He's leaving California for the first time. He's never faced a horse as good as Speaker's Corner before, and he's never gone this far. At the end of the day, are you with Flightline or against him?
I don't know if this is a fair answer. I'm not against either of the inside two. That's my opinion. It feels like a match race. I think they're the two speeds in here. I like Happy Saver. I think he's a good little horse. Aloha West is a Breeders' Cup winner. But the top two in the market are just head and shoulders above the other three from a numbers standpoint. And they both happen to be the speeds in the race. So if it's not Flightline, it's Speaker's Corner. If it's not Speaker's Corner, it's Flightline. Purely on numbers, it's Flightline. But having said that, that Carter, I know it was a very, very tepid pace. Speaker's Corner ran. That was a big, big effort from this horse. And you can't help but notice he just continues to get better and better and better with each race. I'll be very, very interested to see how the whole thing plays out. It's arguably the worst betting race of the day, but from an entertainment standpoint, it might be the best race of the day.
Oh, I mean, you got some superstars and a potential, just absolute freak on display in Flightline. My idea from the race from a betting point of view is to hope that Alvarado and Pratt ride it like a match race. If they back it down and they do it that way, nothing can get involved. But I mean, I think Alvarado's best chance is to sit on, I'm not saying to duel with Flightline, but at least sit on his flank and give him something to think about and make him use every bit of that early speed early with the thought of bottoming out the petrol and trying to take him on the turn. If they do that cat and mouse at high speed and it gets hot early, I could easily see one of the two faster horses cracking and old friend Aloha West coming running down the center. Probably not to win. I'd bet him to win at 10-1. I don't know that we'll get that, but you could. And I like his chance. I like his chance to beat one of them for second at what I'm guessing that price is going to be, as opposed to the even money exacta that I expect Flightline and Speaker's Corner to be. So that's my idea. That's how I'm going to try to take this race and make it a little bit bettable. If you squint, can you see it, or am I banging my head against the wall and they're just going to run 1-2 around the track?
Well, no, I mean, first thing, as far as your price on Aloha West, I think personally, Flightline's probably 3-5, maybe 2-5. But I think Speaker's Corner comes in. I think he comes in from 8-5. I think he's probably even money. And if you have that, again, just purely on math, everybody else has to be double digits.
Yeah.
So
the money's got to go somewhere.
I think you'll get Aloha West probably pretty close to that 10. My thought, if you were really, really just absolutely hell-bent on playing the race and it wasn't part of a multi-race sequence, I would probably try to do something like a cold superfecta, where it's Flightline over Speaker's Corner, and then take your pick, or maybe you end up, sort of, I don't want to say boxing, but going 3-4, 3-4 in third and fourth. I would probably try to separate them. And granted, you would need to press this thing really, really hard. So I'm making it up. Play a $25 or $30 superfecta of 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 4, 3, and hope to. I mean, what does that come back? If it comes in that way, you're going to get $10.
I would have to look at that and figure out on the math, because it's so weird. But there is a super in this 5-horse field. But the weird thing about there being a super in this 5-horse field is, I mean, unless you're seeing something I'm not, I mean, I don't see how Informative can not run last. So
right. I think it's one of those things I think it's one of those things that I don't know that many people, that's the first thing that goes to their mind in a race like this. Right. I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, well, if I can turn the 1-2 exacta into, I'm making it up 7-5, I'm going to do that. As opposed to turning the 1-2 exacta along with the 4-3 third and fourth into 8-1. I mean, is it $8 for a buck? I don't know. It's hard to say, but that would be my kind of idea. If you were really, and granted, you got to be scratching a little bit there to be getting involved that deep. But I would play some sort of a cold superfecta of 20, 30, 40, $50 and just hope that you're right.
Have a little bit of fun. Try to pick the race and just get it right. It's okay sometimes, especially in a day like this. You're not gonna have success trying to own every combination of everything going on. It's not that kind of day. You got to take some chances. You got to make some bets that you're fully. I mean, as you should most days. The idea of trying to lock everything up all the time is folly. But particularly on a day like today, take some chances and just try to pick the race. I like that idea. One combination, two combinations in the super, and see what could happen. With my Aloha West idea, I think that could really potentially pay too. I may go back to the drawing board and look at that one a little bit. Let's move on to the featured race of the day. Unless you had something else on the Met.
No, but to your point, I mean, if you can split those two with Aloha West, then all of a sudden I mean, we're talking about a different story where it's going to pay considerably more than it probably should, simply because everyone's going to have the 2 chalks on top.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to get into the second beer. We're doing a 2-beer show today because we're running. I don't know if I'm going to go to Belmont or just meet the crew at King Umberto's. We're still trying to figure this out. But for today, I'm taking this happy hour concept very seriously.
How far are you from the track?
It's
not to give up your location.
No, it's okay. It's okay. The Brooklyn Bunker is, it's on Google Maps at this point, I think. So it's not much of an issue. It's not far at all as the crow flies. But it'll take me, it could take me 90 minutes to get there.
Yeah,
it's
awful.
Traffic, yeah, it's just terrible. But whatever. I have a ton of work to do. I'm just going to bring the computer, bring the hotspot, sit in the back of the Uber and rock out some writing that we have to do for some other clients. I'll get to work on those on the In the Money Plus content. So we make sure that all those folks get what they're promised. So it'll be cool. But race number 10 is wait a second. No, we're not doing race number 10 because that's not a win and you're in race. Well, you know what? I feel obligated. You've done the Manhattan. Let's talk about the Manhattan real quick. Yeah.
So it's a race in a weird way, and I'm sure this will sound so dumb Saturday afternoon when Chad wins it with one of his horses, but I don't know that I love any of Chad's horses in here. They could all win, but I don't look at this as a year where you've got a bricks and mortar or you've got Instilled Regard or Robert Bruce or one of these horses that I think was really, really good. These are all nice horses, but I don't know that they're head and shoulders above everyone else. I'm kind of done with Gufo. He could win, but A, I think he wants longer, and B, I thought he should have beat Highland Chief. And I've seen a lot of people that like Highland Chief. Maybe he did just finally turn the corner here in the States. I don't know. I think he leaves a bit to be desired. I think that was more a product of the pace and the track itself. I've gone on record saying what I believe about Jaipur. I know he is a Breeders' Cup winner. I'm not a huge fan. And in hindsight, might not have been a great Breeders' Cup turf. Santine, I think he's really good. And maybe the blinkers unlocked his potential. But, to Steve Christ's point, the way that he laid it out, I kind of get the impression no one else did any running in that race. And it's hard for me to really get stuck into a short price on a horse that may have just beat a field that didn't show up. I ended up going up with one of my old friends, and it's not Tribhuvan, who, he nearly got home for me last year. Kind of, not really, but In Love. I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse, but I don't know that he's not a 1.25 mile horse. That's one. Two, I first looked at the running line and I said, boy, you finished last in the Maker's Mark Mile. That had to be a terrible race. And the horses were all finished separated by, a head and neck and nose. That Maker's Mark is the livest race you're going to find to this point anyway in the season. You've had horses that have come back. Mason came back and won next out a stake at Belmont with a 100 buyer. Smooth Like Straight finished second with a 103 buyer. The other buyers in the field, aside from Cheryl Spite, 98, 100, 108, 101. You had 2 other graded stakes winners in there that finished just right in front of In Love. And In Love is a horse that here in the States, his second start off the bench has been a considerable move up. Again, I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse, but I don't know that he's not. In a race, if I don't love anyone, why would I want to take a short price? And I'm going to echo the same thing for the Belmont in a moment. I think In Love's a good horse. I think the blinkers are the thing that changed it for him. I'm going to be betting him to win.
I like him too. You heard me on Final Answers talking about it, and the distance is a question mark, but it's not like it's some wild idea that this horse with lots of foreign blood would be able to get the extra 1/4 mile. I love the second off the layoff. I love the form of the last race. I did pick Santine on top. I'm going to go with Santine. I'm not sure if that's right. And this was another one we argued on the show last night about the 1.25 mile breeding. This was one where I can see the point because the dam, Sentiero Italia, did not want to run a 1.25 mile, but her mom sure did. And she had the second, I want to say her aunt, I suppose it's a sister of the second dam in horse racing parlance, was also excellent.
Not wrong though.
Yeah, going that far. So I'm thinking, in the hands that he's in and the way that he's developing, I made him my top pick, but I'm going to play it 9-5 in the Manhattan. All right, we've got 5 minutes to race for at Belmont, so we're not going to be talking endlessly about the Belmont Stakes, but we can do 3 minutes on it. And I've yapped about this race in a lot of places, so let's bring it to you for your final answer, Matt Bernier.
First things first, what do we have left in the show? I know Naomi is involved, correct?
Yes, we've got 8 minutes. You thinking put a pin and we'll do this at great length later?
Let's talk about this upcoming race at Belmont.
Okay.
Then we'll run Naomi's piece and we can wrap up with the Belmont Stakes.
I like that. It just means Craig's going to have to edit, but he'll.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Hang on. You're right. I'll do it now. The Belmont. All right. Well, you're going to have to cut that out now anyway because it's going to.
No, it's okay.
The cat's out of the bag.
People know. I'll tee this up as we're giving a taste of the loosey-goosey vibe on Horse Player Happy Hour so that people know. So everybody now listening to this on the regular late week show, this is the kind of professional broadcasting you get when you tune into Horse Player Happy Hour. Who wins the Belmont Stakes?
Steve Christ will forget more than I'll ever know about horse racing. And I know Jonathan was in lockstep with him. I believe he said he thought Barber Road should be 50-1 in the race and that only neophytes would find him appealing. So I'm,
you are young, to be fair.
Well, I guess so.
You're no
so I'm taking all this, I'm listening to it and I'm laughing and I'm going, all right. I mean, he's not wrong based on the way that he's laid it out. My logic is, and he did bring up the point that kind of led me to this horse. There is still a world in which I know he hasn't been super close lately, but there's a world in which he is much closer to the pace on Saturday than he has been in these other races. If you're telling me the half's going to be 48-2 or 48-3, he's not going to be 15 off of it. He can't help but be closer. It's sort of the accordion effect. He's been in races.
50. The half might be 50 here.
He's been in races lately where the half is 46 and a piece. There's a reason that he's 10, 15 lengths off of it. If they're going 48, I think with the blinkers off and with someone like Joel Rosario aboard, I think he's going to be a hell of a lot closer to the front. I'm not saying he's pushing the pace, but I just don't think he's going to be that far off of it. I could be entirely wrong, but that's the way that I'm looking at it. And if he is in that position, let's say he's 3 lengths off of it, the number that I'm going to throw out on the broadcast on Saturday, the past 20 years, there have been 15 winners with a half mile left to run within 3 lengths of the lead. That to me is the golden number. You need to be at least in that position to make your run rounding the far turn as they hit the top of the lane. I think Barber Road with Rosario aboard, and it's not a knock against Raylu Gutierrez, I think there's a scenario in which this horse can establish that position and go on with it. And the only other thing that I would throw out there, and I'm curious your thoughts, because I know you like Mo Donegal a little bit. How different are these two horses? I know we all talk about, well, Barber Road's just a plotter. He's a plotter. How different, if you just took everything else away from him, how different are the two horses? I know Mo Donegal may have a bit of a better kick, but in the Derby, they both had the same setup. If anything, actually, Barber Road was wider. Mo Donegal was on the rail for the first 3/4 of the race before he ended up going 15 wide. Barber Road was 2-3 path throughout and then went 16 wide. So I guess I'm looking at it saying if Mo Donegal is going to be 5-2 on Saturday and Barber Road's going to be 10-1, I don't think there's 4X separating the two horses. Put it that way.
I think they'll be longer in the price. I mean, I do think Mo Donegal has that very impressive, to me, maybe slow on the commercial figures, wood to run back to. Barber Road to me is a cool horse. He is, I mean, it's like break out whatever cliche you want. The ball player who'd run through the wall, whatever it is. He's such a tough fighter.
He's Nixon.
Yeah. Yes. He's a real overachieving type. I think he's going to get ignored. I think he might get 15-20. I wouldn't talk you off. Sean Borman made a case when we were speaking privately, just of that idea that I mentioned to Steve when I was infamously playing devil's advocate, that he's a horse who ran faster at every point of call last time than he'd done before. That often portends improvement. Look, I didn't pick the horse in my top 3, not my top 4 even, but I think he's a cool horse. I think it's a really interesting case. We will come back to the Belmont Stakes a little bit later in the show. That's going to go for both shows, whether you're watching live on Horse Player Happy Hour or on the Players Podcast. But for the main show right now, I'm going to throw it to Spencer if you're watching. So take it away, Spencer. And for those watching here, we're going to now pivot immediately to this Belmont Park race. This is the kind of thing you have to do when Belmont and Ascot are on top of each other. You have to cheat a little bit, folks. But in truth, I don't think anybody's going to mind. Let's.
I'm sorry, Craig. I'm sorry. I feel bad now. I screwed it all up.
If you're a horse player happy hour viewer, and you also listen to the Late Week Show, which I imagine many of you are, you could fast forward through this part when you get to it the second time. There's going to be plenty of other good stuff. It's post time for race number 4 at Belmont Park. Matt, give me a winner.
I went with Tommy Gun, the 4. Goes out for George Weaver, third start. Irad picks up the mount, the most recent run, and Stakes Company banged off the gate really hard, missed the break. This is a horse that wants to be forward. That debut went out there, set fast fractions. Every horse, with the exception of Tommy Gun in the next start, improved their buyer and did so rather dramatically. I think that debut was a really key race. And I think Tommy Gun could be, if he's not outright on the lead, I think he's pushing it. And the price is right. He's 6-1.
Yeah, I like the trip you're going to get a lot on Tommy Gun. I mean, I think that it feels that the time form pace projector has 1, 2, and 9 all out there with the 4 just in behind. That could be a good setup. And I think Irad suits the horse well. And certainly, you can just forgive the last race coming out of that stakes action in the New York Stallion Series and heading back to this maiden condition flow move up coming out of the first race. I'm hoping they can sit and pounce with Tommy Gun. I'm just going to row in here with you as we get ready for the second and actually just the final race we're going to watch live on this unique format. Though I have to say the numbers were so good on this contest. I hate to say this after I made such a big thing out of wanting to do it all the same way. If people love the one-track format, we could do that every week. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It's always fun featuring the Naira content too. That's for sure. But, we got other great partner tracks as well as they get ready to load here for Belmont's 4th race. And then, we'll go back. We definitely want to get to the Ascot winning you're in stuff. But, there's more to unpack about the Belmont Stakes. And we've got some terrific comments. Rob wants to know what beers we're drinking. Do you have a beverage there, Matt?
I do. I have a whiskey that will not be named in a cup.
Oh yeah. Okay, you got whiskey. I understand because it's not you. But of course, it should be Maker's Mark, who of course sponsor the brewery.
That bottle is empty upstairs.
See, that's why it's so good. We got
and I'm not lying about that. I can bring it down for you, but. This is a little bit of an afternoon, a little caffeine as well. So
I love it. Yeah, there you go. The little horse racing analyst speedball.
Yeah.
The Makers and Coke. Now I've got 2 Kolsch's, both from New York State. One is made with all New York ingredients from the brewery down the road called Wild East, who are awesome. And I highly recommend folks check out. And the other is from one of my favorite breweries in the world, up in Livingston, New York, on the way to Saratoga. That's Suarez Family Brewery. This is their fine line Kolsch. They're both excellent, very different takes on the style, both really, really good. They both sort of have that nice Kolschy thing where they sit between a lager and an ale. But boy, this Suarez one is really showing well in the glass right now. And my glass is worth featuring too. That's from my friend's Keg, Cask, and Bottle over in Manchester in England, one of my favorite little beer bars in the world, where unfortunately I don't think I'm going to be able to get up that way this trip. Well, you were right about Tommy Gun potentially just seizing the bull by the horns here and going right to the lead. Let's see if the clock is working at Belmont for some clues. It looks like they're running, and it looks like he's got a lot of company. What do you think about this spot for Tommy Gun?
Well, I mean, probably a little uncomfortable, but I have to be honest. With that many horses up there, you do wonder. They're going 23. I don't know how the track's playing. It's far too early to say. With that many horses, you would think it's a more moderate pace.
Yes.
Boy, the 3 is trying to make a big move from the back of the pack. But again, if 46-3 is legitimate, I mean, this is granted, these are maidens, but we're not talking about a land speed record here.
No, let's see. It looks like who's this attacking now? That's asymmetric. And then we got this thing down the center with the potential upset for contest purposes. Who's that? Who looks well? Let's see. And with the 10 isn't necessarily 10 can fight back here. 10's finding a little bit. So this is going to be a nice battle to the wire. 7's got the momentum, but the Klarovich runner, the 10, Chad's asymmetric, battles back and gets the nod. Tough one if you were smart enough to come up with Ocean's Reserve there. Definitely looked like winning for half a second for Castellano and Leah Giamatti. But in the end, Franco and Chad Brown win the day. First time gelding asymmetric. had some decent form and is a maiden no more at Belmont Park. So 2 races, 2 fairly heavy favorites in the contest, but all to play for the folks who are sticking around. You know what I'm going to try to do, if I remember, is I'll go back and look at the leaderboard late night, and I'll do the thing I like to do at the end of the shows where we give props to everybody who qualified and the tour point winners. And maybe I'll just put that up as a short video on Twitter. It may not go out until tomorrow morning. If the boys are getting after it at King Umberto's, I'm not sure you want to see me record a video. But we'll submit. Then again, maybe it would be funny. It is Horse Player Happy Hour after all. So we have some other beers getting name checked, including Michelle, who's dropped a few nice comments. I'm sorry we haven't gotten to them yet, Michelle. Drinking the Molson Canadian. I think I know what part of the world that you are from, Michelle, without asking. Let's see. Michelle had another comment I wanted to get to. I thought this was a little interesting. Talking about breeding, and this is the kind of thing that I'd love to pay attention to. Talking about the breeding business and what happens in the cycle of a mare's produce. Is there a peak period? Are they better? Are they better younger? Are they better older? Michelle's suggesting that they can get stronger as the mare ages, which I think is really interesting. And then she also makes a note, which I think is super sharp, about paying attention to what a horse does in the last quarter mile. And that very much relates to late pace, a concept that we've had Sean Borman talk about on these airwaves a lot. Matt, I know you're a big believer in it. I'm a big believer in it. And I think while I feel like the general populace knows about it very much so on the turf, I think it can show hidden ability and what a horse had left on the dirt as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially for young horses, you know, if you got a horse that maybe I'm making it up, they break a little on the sluggish side, they're trying to figure things out, but they finish with a bit of gusto. I think that you can look at that and say, all right, you might have something here. Let's work on the early part. Let's iron out the creases a little bit. And, you know, maybe we'll have something to work with going forward. So I agree with you. I think everyone focuses on grass. It's equally as important in dirt. I think particularly route racing. Sprints, it feels like if you don't have the gas early on, you're in trouble. Yeah,
but it's so attritional. It's a good point. And I think that another point I like about that is that so often, almost all the time, I mean, Rich Strike's a great example. What looks like some brilliant move of finishing speed, I think the average person, you said, when was Rich Strike running the fastest in the Belmont? And they'd say, well, obviously it's at the end. And that's not true. You know, these dirt racing so often is this exercise in deceleration. And there can be an optical illusion when you're slowing down, you know, you're slowing down slower than the other horses are. And it can make it look like you've got this tremendous burst of late speed. But sometimes, and the clock will tell you, they really are running at least just as fast as they were. And that could just be, I mean, the whole idea of the game these days is trying to find indicators of, from my point of view anyway, from handicapping, trying to find hidden indicators of ability, whether that's trips or an internal pace matchup or a late pace rating that people aren't looking at. Like, try to find something that's not priced into the market. And I think that idea of looking at late speed is a good one. And one, again, that we've talked about many times here on the network. Tom chimes in, Daddy's got to go to the track. How many times has your daughter heard that one? She was unfazed. She usually comes with me. It's just we've got this Taekwondo tournament coming up, and she's got to go to class. She's got to practice her breaking technique. She's got to get that form down. You know, it's like a whole thing. But anyway, normally I get to go pick her up. But yeah, obviously the whole Belmont thing, people coming in from out of town, really, really excited to get to see everybody. If you're a viewer, if you're a listener, and you're not going to be physically out there, right? You're going to be in Stamford.
I'm going to be in Stamford, yes.
Right. So, but if you physically see me out there at the track, say hi. Let us know that you support Horse Player Happy Hour. We appreciate that. We love the fact that these shows, it's more than, you know, it's more than just a broadcast. It's a community. We pride ourselves on that. It's great to get a chance to meet people in real life, especially after a couple of years where we didn't get to do so much of that. Okay, 49 minutes. So I say we cut to our pre-tape, assuming Craig is ready, and he's usually Johnny on the spot with this stuff. I think this is about 8 minutes exactly, and then we'll come back and we'll wrap it with a couple more questions and a little bit deeper discussion of the Belmont Stakes. So with that said, Craig, take it away. The show, very happy to bring in a correspondent who's been with us on Horse Players Happy Hour before, and hopefully will be plenty this year as well. here to talk about the win and you're in races for the Breeders' Cup at Ascot next week. It's Naomi Tukker. Naomi, how are things?
Very well, Pete. Yeah, glad to be chatting Royal Ascot again. It came around soon this year. Time flies.
Indeed. For you, I imagine it's all, basically a blur up to the Preakness. Let's get into the way we kick this meet off every year, the Queen Anne Stakes. We've got a big favorite in BAYI. Is there anybody in here who can run with this horse, or is this? I'm tempted to call it a one-horse race on paper.
Unfortunately, I landed on the same conclusion. I was really trying to find someone. He's undefeated. This is his second start after the winter break. What an easy victory on his return race in the Lock-in. No stranger to Ascot's success. He had that narrow win in the QE2 on Champions Day against the Queen Anne winner Palace Pier. Real World Reopposes was also in the Lock-in. She was second there, but well beaten. I really struggled to find a horse that is going to go against BAYI and be able to top him, because he just looks like such a talented individual.
Fingers crossed there's a chance we can see BAYI lining up for the Breeders' Cup Turf Mile. Oh, I shouldn't call it that. It's the Breeders' Cup Mile. It's the Dirt Mile and the Breeders' Cup Mile come this fall. If I had to throw in a horse to go with him, maybe his stablemate Aldari worth consideration, given how rapidly improving that one is. Quick and nicely off that slow pace the last day, but yeah, they're all running for second to BAYI, aren't they?
Yeah, it feels like they are. That it sounds really unfortunate. There are a couple of other races coming up we're going to talk about that are much more interesting betting wise. BAYI to me is pretty much a lock in the Queen Anne.
Next up, we're going to talk about a race on Tuesday that is not this year a win and you're in race, but it does have it has Breeders' Cup implications, because we've got a Breeders' Cup champion in here in the form of Golden Pal. Very interesting race that has another foreign raider as well, with the Aussies taking part, as well as an interesting local contingent. Who wins the King's Stand on Tuesday?
I am so excited about this race. It feels like you have the American speedster Golden Pal against Australian speed in Nature Strip. Golden Pal, his Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint victor was otherworldly. He jumped from the gate, never let up, and was just much too good. Returned well after his break with an easy win at Keeneland. And I do believe Wesley Ward himself has said that this horse is probably the best he's ever trained and his biggest chance of a win this year at Royal Ascot. So I'm aboard the Golden Pal train. And look, he was second there as a 2-year-old as well in the Norfolk Stakes. So he's got that experience. He knows the track. Now, Team Australia, you have Nature Strip coming in here for Chris Waller. Now, a few days ago, Waller's stable earnings for the 2021-2022 season swelled to nearly 44.7 million, a record in Australia. So clearly he's doing very well. And Nature Strip, 3-time historic TJ Smith Stakes winner. He's called the Spring King Down Under. And we're going to see how he stacks up against the best turf sprinter we have here in the US.
It's a great, great race. I'm really excited to see this clash. And I'm going to actually, don't take my citizenship away. I'm going to side with the Aussies on this one.
What?
Simply because, Golden Pal, as good as Golden Pal has been, he hasn't done his best work overseas. He's done better over our sort of tighter, firmer tracks. Look, he goes with a huge chance. But at the prices, I'm going to take Nature Strip in the King's Stand in the second race we're going to talk about on Royal Ascot Tuesday. Let's pivot to Wednesday. We've got more win and you're in action. The Prince of Wales' Stakes, which is a win and you're in race for the Longines Turf. Naomi, who do you think is going to be the winner?
This is one of the best wagering races when it comes to those Breeders' Cup Challenge race. Lightly raced 4-year-old Bay Bridge is kind of shot to the front with an impressive win at Sandown for Sir Michael Stout. And you have Derby winner Adayar in there too, making his seasonal reappearance after 2 perhaps lesser performances at the back end of last year. At his best, he wins this, but he has to replicate that scintillating King George win of last year. Now, I'm siding with the Japanese raider in here, Shahryar, the Shima Classic hero who was close to the pace and managed to hold off Breeders' Cup Turf hero Yabir, belated at Maidan. He's by one of my favorite sires ever in Deep Impact, and we know how well the Japanese have been doing on the global stage.
It's hard to go against the Japanese at this point. Shahryar comes here with really impressive form, third in the Japan Cup, holding off Jaipur, who we know all about and has that Breeders' Cup form line in Dubai. You can certainly make the case that that he had the better trip than Jaipur did in that race, given where they were positioned and what the gallop looked like. But I'm finding it hard to go against you and to go against the success that the Japanese are having. They've got 2 runners at this Royal Ascot meeting, and it's certainly, if you've watched any of our coverage of these win and you're in races, you can just see the global place that the Ascot is becoming, with runners from all over the world converging, and definitely some potential key pointers to the Breeders' Cup when it comes to Royal Ascot this year. Check out our coverage all across the In the Money Media Network if you want to see more of this type of coverage. And of course, we'll have lots of stuff next week on Royal Ascot as well. On Friday, we've got another win and you're in race for the Breeders' Cup at Ascot. We've got the one for the juvenile turf sprint. It's the Norfolk, and I'm very curious, Naomi, to get your idea of the winner of this one.
I love this race. You know, sprinting on the turf for the juveniles, all about who develops the most by the time they get there. I think Aidan O'Brien has yet again this year very, very strong hand in this race. I do believe lukewarm favorite right now is the Antarctic, who's a full sibling to Sprint Star, but Tash, progressive, undefeated. Last time went over 6 furlong. The way he finished that race makes me think he might even better going further. So I ended up going with a different runner in here. Little Big Bear, also trained by Aidan O'Brien. Like I said, he's got a pretty strong hand in here. He's also got Blackbeard in here possibly. But Little Big Bear just missed out on debut. He's got 2 starts today. Wins going away at Naas next time out, over 5 furlongs, slightly uphill at the end. And it looks like he was just going up like a rocket. He was so strong there late, got a nice RPR rating as well, Racing Post ratings, which I do like to use for these juveniles because you can kind of get a feel for them. Very progressive individual that I'd like to see at Royal Ascot over that 5 furlong distance.
It's an interesting, open-looking race with a lot of different ways you could go. I'm going to side with Michael Bell. Won this race 2 years ago with the Learjet and looks to have another contender in the form of Brave Nation. This horse caught money on debut, like one with talent, and looked pretty nice, making a move mid-pace, won with something up the sleeve. It wasn't a race that wowed on the clock, but as we've noted many times, when they don't go that fast early, it's hard for the time to truly reflect the ability of the runner. I think Brave Nation is an interesting way to go on Friday in the Norfolk, who could potentially annex this and come over for a race like the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Naomi, thank you so much for going over these Ascot win and you're in races. We're going to have you back on soon. All right, there you go. That was recorded yesterday, obviously, and fun catching up with Naomi. It's going to be great fun paying attention to those Ascot races next week. Starts about 9:30 a.m. Tuesday through Saturday. Going to be coverage on the NBC family of networks, on Peacock as well, I believe. So yeah, we should have a very good time checking that out, and probably be doing some tweeting about it. How you figure to be paying attention to that, Matt? What's your Ascot plans for this year?
Well, I mean, knowing that the baby likes to get up at whenever time she wants, earlier would be better next week. You know? Yeah, I believe Peacock for the first 3 or 4 days, and then the final day will be on NBC proper, I believe. So,
okay, great. I'll get that.
Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it is.
We're doing a whole series of pods. If you're interested in Ascot, we're going to be covering every race every day. Nick will be with us, hoping to get Michelle Yu, Scott Hazelton going to be with us, our man Barry Faulkner. It's going to be, we'll have coverage every day. Naomi will be hosting a couple of the days as well. I'll be over there, hopefully doing social stuff, just tons of content. So a couple other comments before we get out of here. Eric likes the change to Rosario, blinkers off, could be sitting on go. That brings up something that I wanted to mention before about Raylu Gutierrez, who I thought handled this situation, a difficult situation, getting jocked off in such a big race, just with ultimate class. It was obvious a lot of people had been sort of saying, oh man, I'm so sorry. And he sent just a very positive tweet about how he understands and is still proud to be part of the team. You know, he's been galloping the horse and gave props to Rosario. I thought it showed uncommon class in a difficult situation.
Yeah, and I mean, look, he is a major part of why this horse is where he is. without Ray Lou and some of the rides that this horse has had. I don't think this horse is in this race at this point. And it's not a knock, but when you have the opportunity, and keep in mind, Gutierrez's career is just beginning. When you have an opportunity to get a rider like Rosario, who's won the Belmont on a few occasions, I think most people would go ahead and try to do that. And, at some point, I'm sure the opposite will happen, where Ray Lou will end up taking him out from a young kid because he is the cream of the crop. And, you just say it's business.
It's life in the big city, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is a nice one from Derek. Good afternoon. Glad he was able to get here for the live show. Yeah, we appreciate that. And he likes the season. Yeah, officially, I guess this is, I keep thinking of it as season 3, but season 1 was kind of like season 0, because it was the pandemic and all that craziness. And we didn't have the full on all the bells and whistles that we were able to graft onto it last year. He enjoyed last year. Keep up the good work. He's got the cows moved to the pasture and it's beer time. That's a good time. I would imagine, Derek, in that line of work. One thing that's nice, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I imagine you do get a nice feeling at the end of the workday that all the homework is done, at least for the time being. I think that sounds very, very, very satisfying, and we appreciate all of your contributions and your participation as well. All right, anything else on the Belmont before we get out of here, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, we'll be very quick with it because we got our friends. I believe Cocktails and Conversation starts in about 10
They're coming on in 15 minutes. I'm so glad you mentioned that. So people who are watching via Breeders' Cup channels, stay tuned. And if you're watching via our YouTube, you're going to have to go over to Breeders' Cup Facebook or Breeders' Cup Twitter to get that. And good news, we're going to be doing podcast versions of Cocktails and Conversation this year as well. So thank you for the save on that.
Of course. Yeah, look, real quick, from a pace standpoint, if We the People goes to the front, which everyone expects him to, I mean, this is a horse that from a pace figure standpoint, we're not talking about a horse that goes out there and cuts out 140s. I mean, his last run, which again, fantastic, he had 113, 117. It's not like he's going to be 15 lengths clear of everyone. I think you're going to have a pretty bunched up field, unless they try to break it open, in which case I'd be terrified of the final, he went a mile and an eighth last time. I'd be terrified of the final, whatever the number is. I'm not trying to do math with fractions right now. You know what I'm dealing with, quarter, 3/8, whatever it is, 3/8. So I think he's fine. I just don't need to find out at 8-5 that he can or can't do it. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I was hoping. I was surprised. I was unpleasantly surprised. Not that David Aragon is wrong. He's probably right. But I was thinking this was a horse that had a chance to get a little lost to the tune of 5 to 2, 3 to 1 at least. And I am worried that it could be more of a 2 to 1, 8 to 5. But this is another tricky one where the money's got to go somewhere. And I think Rich Strike could be bet down below 7 to 2. There's some part of me that wouldn't be shocked if Rich Strike is 6 to 5 in the race with all the public money. I mean, there is public money for a day like this. Mo Donegal, there's a lot of wise guy attention with good reason on him. He's got to take money. Nest, the filly angle, she could take money. We'll see how it goes. I just couldn't get off the pace angle. I couldn't get off the pace angle with We the People. And that is the way that I chose to go. And my idea in here is just to try to beat Rich Strike out of the exacta. If he stuffs me in a locker, it wouldn't be the first time, and I can live with it and be kind of a great result for racing as a fan anyway. But I'm going to play the 4 horses that I, like the best. We the People, Nest, Creative Minister, and Mo Donegal. I really wanted to key We the People off the pace angle, but the more I look at the race, the more I'm getting attracted to those Pletcher runners. I'll figure it out. I'm going to mess around with those 4, Dutch them this way or that, and hopefully be able to get a result. Last thought from you, Matt, before we send it over to Cocktails and Conversation.
No, look, great turnout this week. Hopefully we get just as many, if not more, next week. If you're new to it or this is your first time around, make sure you tell as many people as possible. And like you say, I know it's counterintuitive just based on how much you can win. But in the grand scheme of things, it's all for a good cause. It's a $20 buy-in. Tell as many people as you can to come and get involved and then come hang out with us for about an hour on Thursday afternoon.
I think it's going to be fun. I got to figure out where I'm going to be. I will be at Ascot next week. Obviously, it'll be, what'll it be? It'll be late-ish. It'll be 10 o'clock. So I might just go back to, hopefully there's not dodgy hotel Wi-Fi where I'm staying, and I can just wrap up and come back and we can do it. And it'll be an uncommonly buzzed horse player happy hour. But that could be entertaining. I'll keep it together. I look forward to working with you. I look forward to continuing to work with our friends at Breeders' Cup and HorsePlayers. Get involved next week. Go to HorsePlayers. Game usually goes live Monday or Tuesday. Easiest way to keep up on all the news at Looms Boldly here at Bernier_Matt there. Our free newsletter. We've been sending out custom newsletters for this in themoneypodcast.com/free. But until the next time, we'll thank producer Craig. We'll thank everybody out there for listening and watching. And we'll just bring it right home with the classic sign off today. May you win all your photos.